This video is made possible by NordVPN. Start protecting your internet experience today. Go to nordvpn.com/TopTenz and use code TopTenz to get 70% off a 3-year plan and an extra month for free. Protect yourself online today and let's get into it. Urban myths have been going around since, well, forever. Many of the more modern ones like to speak of the dangers of modern technology and the modern world in general. Stories will tell of how people can find themselves maimed, murdered, or in other danger if they made the wrong choices in life or mess with the wrong technology too much. While many urban legends are nonsense and overly embellished, there are some warnings out there that are true and some stories that should be heeded. In today's video, we're going to go over 10 urban legends that are at least mostly true and highlight the sometimes banal dangers of our modern world. Number 10. You can absolutely lose limbs in an escalator or even get strangled to death. Some people like to laugh about or tease people who are afraid of escalators, and most people consider it an entirely irrational fear, something silly and not worth being so scared about. However, some people who are afraid of escalators will tell urban legends of times that someone got stuck in an escalator and got strangled to death or lost their limbs before someone could press the emergency stop. Now, we want to be clear that escalators are not moving death machines. They aren't regularly killing people or tearing their limbs off, but that doesn't mean they are entirely safe either. The danger is essentially that some part of your clothing or hair could get stuck in the escalator. More commonly, when someone does get injured on an escalator, a shoe or pant leg gets trapped and someone loses a foot, but in a rarer case, a man lost his life when his shirt got caught in the escalator and it strangled him to death before the emergency stop button could be hit. Number 9. Hanging your head out of a car or train window can be fatal, but not by decapitation. Many parents and other supervising adults have warned over the years that hanging your head out of a car window or train window, if you're especially stupid, can cause you to be decapitated or lose your life in an instant. Some people think this is nonsense and continue to hang their hands, arm, or whole head out of a window. In their minds, they're just having some fun and they're not letting the naysayers get them down. They figure that cars, buses, and trains don't really go that close to things, and if they do, they can pull the part of the body in time. However, it doesn't always work out like that. While it doesn't happen daily, people get their heads smacked while hanging them out of moving windows relatively often, all things considered, and it nearly always results in death if the speed was even remotely significant. Now, decapitation has not been reported in any case. The head always stays attached to the body, but that doesn't mean the person doesn't die due to head injury. Number 8. There is an even sadder reason many shelters don't allow black cat adoptions around Halloween. Many people have heard for years that shelters will not allow adoption of black cats around Halloween, and most people assume that the reason for this is that shelters are afraid that people will harm them in some sort of black magic ritual. However, that kind of thing is fortunately very rare, and it's not the main reason that shelters don't allow people to adopt black cats around Halloween. The problem is that people can sometimes be kind of terribly thoughtless about other living creatures, and they'll adopt black cats to use as part of a prop for a Halloween costume and then return the cats later when the whole thing is done and the party is over. This is a terrible thing to do as it stresses the cat out, thinking it might be given a good home, and then it quickly finds itself back at the shelter. Worse yet, someone who just wants it as a prop probably isn't going to take very good care of it for even the few days that they're together. For this reason, many shelters simply suspend adoption of black cats around Halloween, so you're going to have to find another way to complete your witch costume. Number 7. Hackers can listen to your baby and creep on it with your Wi-Fi enabled baby monitor. Today, almost everything has technology of some kind involved, and sometimes that extra technology isn't necessarily a good thing. While baby monitors worked for years without needing an internet connection, recently companies have started selling Wi-Fi enabled baby monitors, which you can track and control from your phone or laptop. Now, this may sound convenient, but it also opens up your little one to hackers. Quite a few parents have had scary situations where they found out that someone was talking to their baby through the monitor, and those people were saying scary things and making scary noises to their child. Some may fear more insidious hacking or specific stalking, but luckily these creeps don't seem to be going after individuals they know. Instead, they're finding baby monitors online and using the default password, as most people don't think to change the password and better secure their devices. They're then having a bit of sociopathic fun with your infant, enjoying the torture pressure that they get to inflict and all the ensuing pain and fear that they can cause from a distance. If you want to avoid your little one thinking they're being haunted by a demon, either secure your Wi-Fi enabled baby monitor with your own more detailed password, or better yet, don't buy a Wi-Fi enabled baby monitor at all. Number 6. Brown recluse bites, if not properly treated, can sometimes cause necrosis. Spider bites are something we all fear, and brown recluse spiders typically tend to bring out that fear more than others. They are known for giving powerful bites that can cause pain and suffering weeks later, and they often heal very slowly. Some legends claim that a really bad bite, especially if not treated, can lead to something called necrosis. This is a condition where the cell tissue actually starts to blacken and die off. While many brown recluse bites don't even require medical treatment, you should probably get yours checked out to be on the safe side, because if it's not properly treated, well, the legends, they can be true. Not only can the tissue actually die through necrosis, but you can also end up with hemolysis, where red blood cells start to die off, and renal failure, which is more commonly known in layman's terms as kidney failure, can occur. Considering that there are about 10,000 spider bites reported per year in the US and almost 2,000 of them are from the brown recluse, it becomes quite a valid fear to watch out for those little monsters and, well, just remember to get checked out if they manage to bite you. So, just before we get into the top 5 today, you know what else is not an urban myth? The risks that you face online that could easily be prevented by a VPN, which is why I want to tell you about today's sponsor, NordVPN. If you're buying things online using a public Wi-Fi spot, you really should be securing yourself with a VPN, and that's where Nord comes in. I know it's tempting not to bother and sort of just hope for the best. I know I personally did that for a while, but those stories you read online about people having their data stolen, they are not just myths. Whenever I'm browsing on public Wi-Fi, I just keep a VPN on in the background all the time, and then you don't have to worry about anything. But it's not all just about security. You can also use it to change the country you appear to be in, so you can get content that might normally be only available in a specific geographic location. NordVPN is also super fast, so watching video is a breeze. There's no lag whatsoever. If you've ever used VPNs and thought they were slow, well, no more with Nord. And you can use it on all of your devices: Android, Chrome, Windows, Linux, and on 6 different devices with just one account. Also, there are no logs kept at all. Unlike companies based in the EU or the US, NordVPN is over in Panama, so they don't have to keep any logs, which is great for your privacy. They're indeed the only VPN to get a perfect score from PC Mag, so start protecting your internet experience today. Go to nordvpn.com/TopTenz and use code TopTenz to get 70% off a 3-year plan and a month for free. Start protecting yourself online today, and let's get into that top 5. Number 5. Sometimes serial killers pretend to be police. Sometimes they are police. When we want protection from serial killers, murderers, or other horrible people, we tend to think of the police as the people who keep us protected and safe. However, the problem is that now and then a serial killer poses as a policeman, or actually is a policeman. Serial killers have been studied in order to try and figure out the phenomenon, and many saw being a police officer as an ideal job. Murderers like David Berkowitz and Edmund Kemper wanted to be cops, as an example. Ted Bundy, one of the most famous serial killers of all time, never did become a cop, but he posed as one on a fairly regular basis in order to lure and kidnap his victims. Joseph D'Angelo, the alleged Golden State Killer, worked as a cop for decades while acting in his capacity as a serial killer in his time off. And the truth is that these are just a few of many examples. We could make an entire video on this. Now, we aren't saying that there are lots of serial killers in the police or that they pose as them all the time. After all, there are only a small number of serial killers to begin with. However, it does hold a lot of attraction to them, as it gives them intimate connections to law enforcement and a lot of personal power they can exercise, often without direct supervision. Number 4. Cockroaches and spiders sometimes take up residence in people's ears. Most people have heard the legends that spiders and even cockroaches will sometimes take up residence inside our bodies. Some people even believe in rumors that we eat several spiders in our lifetime, although most scientists say this is misleading. Regardless, many people don't really believe that insects like our bodies all that much, and especially don't believe in the stories that they will live in some people's ears. However, it's actually a relatively common occurrence. Both spiders and cockroaches like warm, damp places where they feel they can safely hide, and the ear of a sleeping person sometimes fits that bill really nicely. Because we don't regularly expel things from our ears, ears, unlike our noses, it makes for a more secure and safe place to hide. While it isn't an everyday occurrence, hospitals are no stranger to removing bugs from our ear canals. Now, this doesn't mean it will happen to you. Likely, if you have enough insects around that the best place they can find to stay is your ear, you should probably go look for an exterminator. Number 3. Rabies can be very hard to catch in time, making it a silent killer. Rabies only kills about 50 people per year, so it isn't particularly terrifying, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be scared of it anyway. At least you should be scared enough to take it seriously. The fact of the matter is that so few deaths occur because we have a good vaccine and people tend to utilize an abundance of caution, but sometimes they don't, and it's a fatal mistake. Rabies, sometimes compared to zombie viruses, spreads almost entirely by bites and from animal to human. It can make the person rage, act erratic, and foam at the mouth, and it can also cause paralysis. However, what makes it terrifying is that it can be such a silent killer. Those who die usually don't see symptoms right away after an animal bite, such as from a cat, a dog, or a bat, and thus think they're fine and don't get the rabies vaccine administered shortly after the bite. This is a huge mistake because the vaccine can get started right away, but rabies can incubate and not show symptoms for up to a year. By the time it starts showing symptoms, it's too late, and the person will develop hydrophobia, fear of water, or even of drinking it, and will die of inflammation of the brain very shortly. Only one person survived the latter stages of rabies, and they were put into an induced coma until the virus could be put under control. Number 2. A woman did indeed die holding her pee for a wee. There is a legend that a woman was doing a radio contest in order to attempt to win a Nintendo Wii back when it first came out, and you couldn't easily find it in the store. This was in 2007, and the radio station had a contest going where people drank a lot of water and then saw who could hold their pee the longest. The winner, of course, would get a brand new Nintendo Wii. Unfortunately, the contest took a very dark turn, as not only did this woman only barely win second place, which did not get her the Wii, but she died shortly after from water intoxication. And unfortunately, everything about this story is true. Despite the on-air host talking about the dangers of drinking too much water and a listener calling in to tell them it was potentially dangerous, they went ahead with the contest anyway. Because of this, the jury decided to award the woman's family $16 million in compensation. 10 of the radio station's employees were fired, and the station itself did not appeal the verdict, as they felt the family had gone through enough already. Number 1. An American couple adopts a Ukrainian girl who is much older than they thought. This story, out of Lafayette, Indiana, is completely bizarre, and it may be years, if ever, before we know the real truth. Even if much of the story is muddled or untrue, the parts we do know are true are still far stranger than anything someone could make up. Back at the beginning of the decade, an Indiana couple adopted a young girl from Ukraine who was supposed to be 8 years old, and she would come and live with their family, which included 3 boys. Things seemed to go well at first until, as the mother alleges, the new daughter was seen pouring cleaning chemicals into her coffee and told her point blank in an adult manner that she was going to kill the whole family. At this point, the couple took her to a hospital and a mental health crisis center. They claimed that they learned she had dwarfism and was actually a lot older than they thought. However, the couple managed to have her legal age changed to about 30 with the approval of a judge who clearly believed that she was just an adult with dwarfism. However, the authorities also found later that they left her in the United States when the rest of the family moved to Canada, and they continued to pay for her rent. Some people felt the parents were running away from her, and some accounts suggest that even if she was a lot older than suggested, she was still a minor when they left, which would make it child abandonment. The parents are being charged with a crime over the whole debacle, but contends that they were still trying to help her from a distance and believed her to be a legal adult when they left for Canada. They also insist they were not running away. It may be a long time, if ever, before court discovery shows us the full truth. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you're looking for more from me, I've got a podcast. It's called The BrainFood Show. If you search BrainFood, one word, wherever you get your podcasts, you will find it. And as always, thank you for watching.